Well, here we are again with probably the final iteration for this particular car. Swapped out the Morel hybrid woofers for the Dynaudio mw162. So now there's Dynaudio tweeters, Dynaudio woofers. The difference between the hybrid tweeters and the Dynaudio 102s was huge, but the woofers is less so. There's some pros and cons on the woofers actually. Dyne tweeters way better, way up here, okay? But the woofers, it's almost more like kind of like what you like. The big difference I noticed with these Dynaudio woofers is the mid-range is smoother, the vocals are more clear, more detailed, it's easier to listen to podcasts, news broadcasts. So, if I had to sum up the big difference I noticed in the woofers, it's that the hybrid, if anything, might be a slight, and I mean like tiny bit better, on the bottom end with hip-hop front bass, like 80 hertz, stuff like that, 63 hertz right in there. You can give it a little bit more power, a little bit more punch. These aren't bad, they'll just give up slightly before the hybrids do. On the flip side, the mid-range of these is way better. They're less shrilly, less sharp. You can really put the power to them with a variety of music. They're a lot more dynamic. So I would say, if you're on the fence and you're looking at the hybrids, and ordering Dynaudio from Europe is kind of touchy. You're like, I don't want to buy these speakers and not be able to get rid of them. As someone who's tried both, the tweeters are a no-brainer. The Dynes, everyone I know who's listened to them agrees 100% the Dynes are a better sounding tweeter. But the woofers, like I said, it's more nuanced. So if you're more concerned with like the 60 to 80 hertz punch and getting as much bass up front as you can handle, like the hybrid's really good at that, especially without having enclosed door pods. If you want a smoother mid-range, something easier to listen to, something that does really well with rock or Depeche Mode or alternative or trance house stuff like this, that 500 to 2K hertz range, these Dynes are a lot smoother. They're probably flatter with a little bit of a dip around 2K if I had to guess. They're a little darker. The Morels, the thing about those, you had to cross them over pretty low because around 2 kilohertz they had these weird peaks, at least in this car. So here's the other thing. All this stuff I'm saying applies to a flat door panel 4Runner, and it may not be what happens in a different car. I didn't bench the speakers in an open air environment, but I have played with enough that I kind of get a feel for what's doing what. And the hybrids, I would honestly want to cross over probably around, the woofers anyway, around 1500 hertz on a 6 dB. That way you kind of naturally roll them off into 2K. If you wanted to run them higher, you would need a steeper slope. They just don't do vocals as well. You could bring the tweeter in lower if the tweeter can handle it. It's doable. I did it for a while, and I actually, really like those hybrid woofers. But the Dynes are easier to set up. They play great on a simple 6 dB passive crossover, and if you run active, it's even better. Fuck, active's wonderful. You don't have any of the phase problems. I had to mess around with basically the design of the crossovers on these is not the standard Dynaudio one. It's okay, but in each car you have kind of phase issues depending on the panels, depending on a whole host of other variables. So this one, a simple 612 works really well, which actually, now that I think about it, it's exactly the slopes that Dyne uses on their factory crossovers. The Morels are the ones, now that I think about it, that I didn't like their factory crossover. They ran an 18 and a 12, which played terrible with the rear, which is on 0 and 6. So anyway, if all that went over your head, the bottom line is crossovers need to play well with each other so you don't have phase issues. But to sum it up, out of all the speakers I've used in here, which are the Dynaudio C2, C5s, Vocal K2s, Morel, what the hell is that thing called? The one below the hybrid, Tempo Ultra, and the hybrid. Now onto these Dynaudio esotecs. The esotecs are by far my favorite of all of them, but the hybrid woofer's really close. Like, that thing's really good. I can't discount it. The Focals were noisy, they're loud, they're shrilly, I think you could probably make them, I'm not going to go too deep on these, but I think you can make them work in the right enclosure if you're really tinked with them, but they're just loud. Like, there's nowhere else to put them. Coincidentally, Focal actually makes a really good amplifier. They're about 10 years old, the FPS line. They used to retail for like over $1,000. If you can get your hands on one of those, they're fucking phenomenal for, the $300 or $400 they sell for used. I mean, they're really good. But at any rate, I'm rambling. That's my thought, though. If you're kind of on the fence on, trying, I think they're like $1,000 now for a set of these Dynaudio esotecs, I would say go for it. There's nothing else I've heard that I like more until you start getting into the really exotic stuff. And the thing about the really exotic stuff, here I am rambling again, to make it work, when you get up into the Elates, the Supremos, the Esotars, they need enclosures, they need work done to the door panels, they need a lot to really bring out how good they are. If you don't do that, a lot of them are lower Q driver, which means if you put them in an infinite baffle, which is what a door is, they might not even sound that great. So, the two that I really honed in on were obviously the hybrid and this esotec, and I love this. So it's probably my last video, at least in this car, is I finally stopped at the Dynaudio esotecs.